Hello and good evening. This is Tormigo Gaming. So, is another, well, sort of rant, but I've been noticing something. It's from something. You know how, because it feels like deja vu all over again. You see, when Ukraine started their counter-offensive in the Zaporizhia area, people are like, oh, why are they breaking through it if the very incident happened, like they did in Kharkiv? And people, and then, the Vatniks are now saying, oh, the whole thing's failed, the Russian Ukrainians are losing the war, and, all this stuff. But then I realized, from those infamous people like history legends, but then I remember something. This is the exact same thing that happened last time. And what I mean by that is that in last year, when the Ukrainians attacked Kherson, they made some progress, but were being slowed by the Ukrainian Russian defenses, and the people said the exact same thing, saying that the Ukrainians can't break through, the Russians are too defensive and they won't do anything. In fact, Hissy Legends in his video saying that the Ukrainian counteroffensive today has failed is very similar to the one he made about Kherson last year. Why I'm saying all this? Because they said this, and then a month or so later, Kharkiv happened, and the Ukrainians broke through there and basically destroyed multiple Russian battalion groups, and basically humiliated the Russian army there, and took loads of territory, and basically showed how capable they are with literal thunder runs like they're from the U.S. Army, and also they took Kherson in September. They literally took Kherson despite of everything because of the worst situation the Russians had, and now today they are. I feel like that the Ukrainians might attack Kherson again. Now hear me out. People are saying that, oh no, they wouldn't do that because of the river. But they said the same thing, didn't they, back then? Like, Ukrainians don't have the force to be able to take anywhere else, right? Because we didn't know what happened at Kharkiv until it happened. And we have to remember that much of the Ukrainian reserves have not been used at all nowhere else. Not even Zaporizhia, because it's just been two groups that have been used, but not anyone else. There have been hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians that have not been used. Now, it could be that they could be used for a breakthrough attempt when they make any holes, but I feel like the better place would be Kherson, or probably up north in a surprise attack. Why? Because this what happened. They weakened the Russians enough. They fooled them, and then they attacked in a wildly different place than they expected, and destroyed the Russians there. Now what's happening today? They're grinding down the Russians, attacking their bases, destroying their supply lines, destroying the Kerch Bridge again, mind you, and the Russians are suffering right now, really suffering. In fact, thanks to Gherkin's cavalier stupidity, he might have actually helped the Ukrainians actually win the war. Why? Because now Putin is having his Stalin moment, and by that I mean he's having his purge. And by purge, so Purge. So as you've seen, multiple commanders have been sacked, and one of them has literally been sent to Syria. The general that was literally giving the Ukrainians a hard time is Zaporizhia, who actually seemingly knew what he was doing. His name was Surovikin. Guess what? Now he got ousted because he was telling the truth about the situation since they weren't having a great time of it. And he got ousted the very moment he said it. And he saw this go to his video. And then there was General Armageddon. He got arrested, and God knows what's going to happen to him after what happened, and because of his connection to Gherkin, to Bogosian. And then there's multiple generals that have also been arrested or been relieved of command. And man, and what's the thing they have in common? disgruntled. They've been disgruntled. They're basically talking that the situation is bad and that stuff need to change, and they've been taken out. Heck, the literal theorist and now Gherkin, look, the war criminal himself has now been arrested and is going to arrested now on charges. Yep, the and from the looks of it, it may be because of his comments against Putin lately and of the MOD. And it's interesting that now the rush now because now they're doing a purge while they're in a conflict. Do you remember the last time Russia had a huge purge back in the 1930s, where it basically destroyed the leadership of the Soviet Union, and then when the Wehrmacht attacked, the leadership was either in the gulags or dead. And when the situation got really bad to the point where they reached Moscow, they had to get those generals who weren't killed back to the lines because of that. And now this stuff things happen because of the near civil war that happened. Putin is now fearing, and now he's going to get rid of all his perceived rivals and opponents. So now, and then worse off, the Russians have bled a lot. Like they lost lots of soldiers during the offensives around Avdiivka and such. And there have been many videos with Russians literally saying that their equipment is either still terrible to this day, they have T-62s to fight with, or 54s. There literally was a video of this Storm Z unit that literally had only 2 rifles for themselves and a couple bullets. They're literally being the cliche of the Russian soldiers of the one rifle myth that happened in Stalingrad. That was supposed to be a myth, but because Russia is so incompetent, now is actually reality there. It's doesn't tell well. And then with Russia just being Russia, just attacking civilian targets like the grain shipments, the grain fineries. Instead, the Ukrainians in return have attacked their bases, blew up a couple bases actually, and have destroyed the bridge beforehand. Basically, being effective while the Russians are just being barbaric. Now the question is now when. Because this happened before. The Saudis are going to be saying, oh, the counteroffensives are working, the Russians are going to hold for eternity. But then the Ukrainians are going to attack and force someplace else, going to break through it, destroy the circle, multiple Russian units in a huge disastrous battle for the Russians, and then the Russians will therefore have to abandon those positions in Zaporizhia because of the worsening situation. Because I know it's going to happen. You know why? Because the Ukrainians have done it before, and the Russians are getting the generals that were responsible for that disaster to begin with. It's not about if it's going to happen, it's when. Because this is what happened last year. They thought the Vatniks thought Ukrainians did it until it accumulated to the Ukrainians did do it, and the Russians couldn't. Because remember, the Russians don't have artillery supremacy at everywhere. The only place you could consider that is Zaporizhia, but in the north and in the Kherson fronts, they don't. Heck, if you look at the map of where the defenses are in Ukraine, the sparseness is basically in the north and in the south. So if the Ukrainians and considering how there are few forces even at the Kherson front, if the Ukrainians decided to attack in force with a lot of forces there, the Russians would have basically nothing to stop them. Or unless if they have any reserves, they would have to be forced to be sent to the dangers of like the Kiev or northern fronts, but therefore would lose Zaporizhia, and then there would be the same problem they had last year. Because now that the competent generals are now gone, well, we've seen how bad generalship is in Russia Russia, I wouldn't be surprised if it happens again. So that's just just my discussion. I'm just saying that people just chill, all right? The Ukrainians know what they're doing because they've been able to perform efficiently and effectively all this time, while the Russians have been resorted to using literal tanks that were made in the 40s. There is nothing to worry about. If Russia was able to win this war, it would have been during the siege of Kiev. And since they didn't win that, the war is lost. Putin is only fighting this war because he knows at the moment it ends, he will die. All right. So that's just my discussion of it. See you next time, and see you.